The Industrial Revolution, the Scientific Revolution, and the French Revolution by Maddie Sachs. The background of the Industrial Revolution. It started in Britain in the late 1700s, and it marked the change from handmade and homemade products to machine-made products made in a factory. Before industrialization came about, life in England mostly focused on farming. Why Britain? In Britain, before industrialization, the quality of life was pretty bad, and Britain had sizable deposits of coal and iron ore. It was politically stable and was the colonial leader of the world, which means the colony could provide raw materials. Industrial Revolution. What happened? James Shergraves invented the spinning jenny. The invention of the power loom made the weaving process much faster, and Henry Bessemer produced a method of mass-producing steel. And so iron and steel became essentials for everyday life in England. And James Watt improved powerboats and locomotives with a steam engine. In the mid-1800s, steamboats were able to carry goods across the Atlantic. Richard Tretherick invented the first steam-powered train, and John McAdam invented a new way of constructing the roads so they were more efficient, and communication became easier with the invention of a telegraph. Quality of life for people in England during the Industrial Revolution. The quality of life improved for the higher and middle classes of England, but life for the poor and working classes was very miserable. The living conditions were unsanitary and they had cramped quarters. And the working conditions were long hours, no fresh air or light, short, non-frequent breaks, very low wages, and no plan for when people retired and they couldn't work anymore. This is an excerpt from a book by Charles Dickens about what a city in England was like during the Industrial Revolution. Fun facts about the Industrial Revolution. There are people in England that oppose industrialization. They were called Luddites, after their supposed leader, Ned Ludd, who may or may not have existed, and stock companies and other financial inventions and innovations started to take hold in cities such as London. The background of the Scientific Revolution. People in the 1500s started to question what old philosophers and teachers had written about subjects such as astronomy and anatomy. So scientists started to do their own research and discovered that the old writings were often wrong and inaccurate. Scientific Revolution. Copernicus. Copernicus was the first person to question Ptolemy, an astrologist who said that the Earth is at the center of the universe, but he did his own calculations and he realized that the sun is actually at the center of the universe. He was the first one to propose this heliocentric system of the universe, but people thought he was crazy because that was not accepted. Copernicus said things that there is no center of all the celestial circles and spheres of the universe. The center of the Earth is not the center of the universe, but only of gravity and of the lunar sphere, meaning the moon, and all the spheres revolve around the sun at their midpoint. Therefore, the sun is the center of the universe, not the Earth. Scientific Revolution. Vesalius. He was the first person to go in depth about the anatomy of the human body. People had relied on classical texts, which were based off the anatomy of pigs and dogs at the time, but Vesalius used corpses of human bodies to make his findings. His book that he published was used as a textbook for many years. Scientific Revolution. Francis Bacon. He was a philosopher who thought people relied on their senses too much and they should question and doubt everything before they decided it was true. When a scientist had a hypothesis, he believed they should set up an experiment to try and prove their hypothesis wrong. But he also argued that in order to say something is true, a scientist must have many trials to say so. Scientific Revolution. René Descartes. Descartes preferred not to use experiments and to just think. He invented the Cartesian coordinate system and believed the most accurate proofs were those using mathematics. He was also the first person to realize that Jupiter had moons. Scientific Revolution. Galileo. Galileo was a mathematician who later studied astronomy. He designed an improved compass, a new thermometer, a functional telescope. Galileo also proved Copernicus right about the heliocentric universe, and the Catholic Church didn't like his findings, so they put him on trial. French Revolution. Background. In the late 1700s, there were three rigid classes in France called estates. The first and second estate were the rich and privileged people who paid little to no taxes. The third estate were the workers who paid a lot of taxes. And around this time, the American Revolution was wrapping up, so the impatient commoners had the idea of revolution. 1789 and the French Revolution. France's king, Louis XVI, lived a very lavish lifestyle, while peasants were starving and paying very heavy taxes to support his lifestyle. Although, because of the bad harvest, the peasants had barely enough food to live, and France's debt went up. This political cartoon from France shows how the peasants supported the rich. War start of the French Revolution. Louis XVI called a meeting of the Estates General where they hoped to increase taxes on the poor and decrease his debt. The poor were excited because they hoped the meeting would help their lives, and the second estate wanted to increase their political power at the meeting, but each estate got one vote and the third estate was outvoted. French Revolution. National Assembly. The deputies of the Third Estate were frustrated with how the Estates General meeting went, and they formed the National Assembly to try and right it. The members formed an oath called the Tennis Court Oath, and they wanted to never disband until France had a new constitution. The French Revolution. Bastille. Bastille was a French fortress and a prison with only a few prisoners and a lot of gunpowder and weapons. But when King Louis XVI threatened to take action against the National Assembly, the persons wanted to arm themselves, so they took these weapons and gunpowder. The revolt led to the Great Fear, but this day is still celebrated in France. The French Revolution. New rules and rights. On August 26, 1789, the French government adopted the rights of man and citizen. It allowed all men to have security, resistance to oppression, freedom, and equality and liberty. And they drafted a constitution, but it proved harder than they expected. And the Legislative Assembly was formed and declared war on Austria and Prussia, hoping to spread the revolution. This is a copy of the Declaration of Rights of Man in 1789 that French adopted as a way to protect people's rights. The French Revolution, the National Convention, and the guillotine. A radical named Jacobins attacked the royal residence. Persons massacred lots of people they thought were counter-revolutionaries to help their revolutionary cause. The Legislative Assembly was replaced with the National Convention, and King Louis and Marie Antoinette were both sentenced to death at the guillotine. French Revolution. Reign of Terror. The Reign of Terror was the most violent phase of the French Revolution, and people who were suspected of being counter-revolutionaries or people who fought against the revolutionaries were executed by the thousands. Robespierre was the leader of the Committee of Public Safety, the organization that carried out these killings, and after the Reign of Terror, the French people revolted against the extremities. In the French Revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte. The National Convention got a government into place with a directory of 5 appointed members that held executive power. The directory was full of corruption, and Bonaparte got rid of it and called himself the First Consul. This ended the French Revolution and led to the Napoleonic era. There are many differences and similarities between these three revolutions. They all changed the way people lived in the time, and they all had positive and negative effects that affected everyone around them. Thank you for watching.